Welcome to the hearing for Tim Horan. And I'm going to read the letter from the governor dated September 10th. I am pleased to nominate Timothy R. Horan to the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. I submit this nomination for your advice and consent of the Executive Council. So welcome, everyone. Welcome, Mr. Horan, Attorney Horan. Why don't we start by, if you want to introduce your guests.
Sure, thank you. I have my wife Lisa right there, my son John, my daughter Abby, my daughter Erin, and my daughter Megan. I have one more child who's at school, couldn't make it, so he's gonna be appearing virtually and be looking in. So those are my that's my family, and then I have my witness, Attorney Sandy Saunders, and I have I have Judge Moses, who is appearing via Zoom.
Exactly. We're going to go right to the Honorable Kimberly Moses, and we'll let you give us your thoughts on the nominee.
Well, thank you for getting to me so quickly. Good morning.
Wait, we can't hear you yet. I don't know if you can hear us,
hear
but
me?
we can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Can't hear you yet.
No.
That was a great statement, Judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you hear me now?
Are you having fun? Yeah, you can nod, yes or no?
I do love the glasses. The glasses
Thank
too.
you.
Well, he's fixing witness, and we'll get back to her very quickly. That's a good idea, Councilor Kennedy.
I find her credible.
All right, Attorney Saunders, would you like to present?
Yes.
Thank you. You can sit, stand, whatever you like. Welcome. Thank you for coming all the way from New Bedford.
Thank you. That was brutal.
It was over 2 hours for me too.
Members of the Governor's Council, the opportunity to appear before you today to speak on behalf of my friend and colleague, Tim Horan. I'm very proud to be here for him. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tim Horan for the entirety of his 21 years in practice, during which time I've been practicing law myself for over 30 years. Throughout our careers, Tim and I have worked on numerous cases together, and I've come to know him both professionally and personally. What stands out most about Tim is his unwavering composure. In the often emotionally charged environment of the Probate and Family Court, it's not uncommon for attorneys to lose their tempers, whether with opposing counsel, litigants, or on occasion, even in front of the bench. Tim doesn't. He has a rare ability to remain calm, collected, and professional in all circumstances. He takes challenging situations in stride, never lets the moment get the better of him. That's not to say that Tim lacks passion, quite the opposite. He cares deeply about his clients and their outcomes. He is fully invested in their futures and works tirelessly to protect them. One of Tim's greatest strengths is his ability to help families transition through difficult times without inflicting unnecessary damage. In a field where some attorneys can worsen family conflict, Tim consistently works to preserve the family structure as much as possible, even while guiding clients through separation or divorce. It takes a great deal of empathy, something Tim has demonstrated time and time again over the course of his career. In a profession where empathy can easily be lost to the daily grind, Tim's compassion remains steadfast. I'd also like to highlight Tim's creativity as a legal practitioner. As seasoned attorneys, it's easy to fall back on well-worn strategies, handling cases as we always have. But Tim brings a fresh perspective. In a recent matter where I represented a client in a particularly complex divorce, Tim was brought in mid-case after the original attorney was discharged. The issues were not easily solvable using traditional approaches. Tim quickly assessed the dynamics and proposed an unconventional yet highly effective resolution, one that neither I nor the prior attorney had ever considered. His out-of-the-box thinking allowed the parties to reach a workable agreement. Creativity isn't often mentioned as a desirable trait for a probate and family court judge, but in truth, it's invaluable. Judges who could see beyond standard solutions often help attorneys resolve cases more efficiently, reduce court backlog, and most importantly, better serve families in crisis. Tim's ability to think innovatively will be a tremendous asset to the bench. In all, Tim Horan is a thoughtful, steady, and resourceful attorney. Exactly the kind of person we need on the Probate and Family Court. And I am so very proud of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Attorney Saunders? Very much. Yes, Councilor Jacobs.
Just to follow up, I found your last component really interesting about the creative solutions in the probate and family court and how. I haven't heard anyone talk about probate family in that way before, and so I'm just curious from your perspective, how much room for creativity exists in probate and family court and in what ways is that true, or are there limits from statute or otherwise?
I'd say there's a lot of ways that creativity can play a part in solutions in the probate and family court. You just have to think outside of the box. And too often we get stuck in the box within the framework of the statutes and the formulas. But there are always some very good attorneys who can sort of get out of that. And he's one of them. Like I said, we had a very difficult case and he came to me right off the bat and said, what do you think about this? And it was a way to divide the assets in a way that I had never considered before.
Oh, I
And
appreciate
in that
that.
particular case, it was very helpful.
Thank you very much for your statement. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for coming up today. Appreciate your service and your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, do we have, is the judge ready to roll?
I'm ready.
Not
Can
she's
you
ready
hear
to
me
roll,
now?
Is the system ready to roll? What's going on, Adam? We're gonna. Your microphone's going on, Judge. She can't hear
No.
you.
I'm
But you
not
can.
muted.
Can you hear us, Judge?
Can you hear me now? Let me try hold on.
Few calls. You only get a call, you get to figure it out. Yeah, I think she went to get a tech person. Did you check your
I'm
audio
not
settings
muted.
and try to unmute?
Wait, try it again.
All right, we don't want to put pressure on you. We'll come back to you in a little while. Is that okay?
All right.
Judge,
Wait,
can you
hold on
call-
one second.
Speakerphone call number? Oh, yeah, why don't you call my cell phone? We'll put you on.
What's that?
Get my cell phone, I'll text you. I think I still have your
Okay,
number.
I'll call.
You remember? She was my nominee. Yes. From the district. Let me see. No, I have your father's number, but not yours. The father was a judge. He's a mediator now. That's why he's a great arbitrator mediator.
Nominee can call.
That was on the assignment. That was, we'll come back.
All right, why don't we, oh wait, here we go. I got it right here. Your Honor?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. We can all hear you now. Yes, yes.
But I've never been known for my technical skills. So.
Yeah, well, that makes two of us.
All right. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
It is a genuine honor to appear today in support of the nomination of Timothy Horan as an Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. As you know, the Probate and Family Court holds a uniquely important position in our judicial system. We are tasked with resolving sensitive and impactful matters, cases that affect the lives of children, parents, and families in ways that extend far beyond the courtroom. To serve effectively in our court requires not only legal expertise, but a deep well of empathy, patience, and wisdom. I had the pleasure of knowing Tim for over 20 years and can confidently say that Tim will bring all of these qualities to the bench in abundance. Over the course of his career, Tim has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to his clients and justice. Tim has appeared before me many times and without fail is always prepared and knowledgeable of the law. Tim's courtroom demeanor is exceptional and beyond compare. He's able to zealously advocate for his clients while always maintaining the professionalism that has earned the trust and respect of his colleagues, the bench, court staff, and most importantly, the families that he serves. Tim understands the emotions in family law cases, that they run deep, and for the litigants, the stakes are high. Tim always listens carefully, considers every perspective, and approaches each matter with a fair and balanced mindset. I would also be remiss if I didn't speak about Tim as a person outside of the courtrooms. We share children of the same age, not together.
I don't know, there's one really small one here, we're trying to figure that out.
I cannot count the number of times after a long day in court that I've seen Tim at a soccer field or a basketball court, either coaching or cheering on one of his many children with the same energy, devotion he brings to his profession. He's a devoted husband and father, and this personal experience gives him invaluable insight into the realities that families face every day. The combination of his professionalism and ability to be empathetic makes him uniquely suited and qualified for a probate family court bench. He understands the importance of family, the complexity of relationships, and the delicate nature of the decisions before our court. By appointing Tim, we will be selecting a judge who will serve with integrity, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to justice. It is with the utmost enthusiasm that I offer my support for his nomination. I can't wait to have him as a colleague once again. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Your Honor. Are you on the vineyard or Nantucket?
Vineyard.
Oh, well, enjoy it. I hope the weather gets better for you.
Yes, leaving later on today, but thank you for allowing me to appear by Zoom.
I appreciate you appearing for us. Any questions for the judge? They're gonna let you off the hook real easy.
I'm gonna watch the rest of the hearing.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
You apologize for the technical difficulties.
No problem. Take care.
Take care.
All right, anyone else in here to speak on behalf of the nominee? Anyone else here to oppose the nominee? Hearing none, we're gonna turn it over to you to tell us why we should vote for you.
Thank you, Counselor. Good morning. I am humbled by this nomination and truly grateful for the opportunity to stand before you today. I'm deeply appreciative of Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for the trust they have placed in me in nominating me for the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. I would like to thank this council for considering my nomination for and for the important work that you do in this process. I want to thank Governor's Legal Counsel Jesse Bodo and Deputy Legal Counsel Derek Hasselheim, who have both been tremendous resources throughout this process. A special thanks as well to the Governor's staff for their hard work and dedication. I would also like to thank my witnesses that have testified on my behalf, Judge Moses and Attorney Sandy Saunders. I cannot thank you enough for your support. I would also like to recognize the Judicial Nominating Commission, whose vital work ensures a thorough and fair evaluation process of judicial applicants. On a personal note, I want to express my profound gratitude to my wife of 29 years, whose unwavering support has been my constant anchor. I also want to thank my greatest accomplishment, my 5 kids, for their love and encouragement. As I stand before you asking for your confirmation, I think it's important to tell you who I am and where I came from. I am one of 6 children born to Peter and Marilyn Horan. Both my parents have passed on, although I'm confident they are proudly looking down on me today. My father served the greater New Bedford community as a family physician for over 50 years. Helping others, especially those less fortunate, meant everything to him. He was devoted to his patients, still making house calls up until the year before he passed away at the age of 80. I can remember riding along with him on some of those house calls as a young boy, waiting in the car while he carried his medical bag into homes, often some of the poorest parts of New Bedford, to care for those who were too ill to leave their house. Service to the community wasn't just something he talked about, it was something he lived every day. Beyond medicine, he also had a passion for farming. No child in our home was spared from the responsibility of tending to the animals, our cow, horse, geese, and chickens, or helping in the fields of vegetables that my father planted. These daily chores weren't always embraced with enthusiasm by his children, but they instilled in us a deep appreciation for hard work. My mother grew up poor, and she never forgot what it meant to worry about housing, to worry about food and clothing. She made sure we understood the impact of this insecurity. Though trained as a nurse, she stayed at home and cared for me and my 5 siblings. She was the most compassionate person I've ever met, and she lived her Catholic faith fully. Her deepest hope was to raise kind, empathetic children. She also taught us to serve the disenfranchised. She volunteered at homeless shelters and often brought some of her friends home from the shelter to our Sunday dinners. She believed and taught us that it costs nothing to show another person kindness and compassion, no matter where the person came from or what they've been through. In 1998, our family was forever changed when my younger brother, John, the baby of our family, was killed in a car accident. That shook us to our core. We were never the same, especially my parents. We were tasked with the responsibility of moving forward, even after such a devastating loss. That perseverance became a gift I relied on again in 2016 when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. Just 1 week before my daughter's senior prom, our lives were upended. Thanks to our faith, our family, and our community, we just celebrated 9 years of being cancer-free. These experiences shaped me. They've grounded me in empathy, patience, and steadfast commitment to serve. Professionally, I graduated from Fitchburg State College with a degree in sociology and a minor in criminal justice. I earned my law degree from New England School of Law, attending the night program while I worked full-time at the Division of Professional Licensure. Balancing law school, work, raising 2 small children at the time was no small feat, and I could not have done it without the support of my wife. But in the end, earning my law degree was more than worth it. After graduating, I continued to work as a prosecutor at the Division of Professional Licensure before I returned to New Bedford to open a law practice with my sister Kathleen. Over the last 20 years, I've handled cases in the district, superior, juvenile, and probate courts. And I've had trial experience across all 4 courts, but the bulk of my work has been in the probate and family court. I've represented clients in matters ranging from divorces and custody disputes to estate administration, guardianships, and conservatorships. This court handles some of the most personal and emotionally charged matters in our legal system. Whether it's a parent fighting for custody or a couple navigating a divorce, or siblings disputing an estate, these are incredibly sensitive and often painful moments in people's lives. Because of that, I believe it is essential that a probate and family court judge demonstrates patience, empathy, and respect, ensuring every person who enters the courtroom feels heard and is treated with dignity. The principles shaped by both my personal and professional experiences guide me every day. If confirmed, I will carry those principles into the courtroom. While I cannot promise to be perfect, I can promise that I will strive every day to be the best judge I can be. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Counsel Civil.
Thank you.
Well,
Good morning,
Good morning.
and congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and share your personal and professional experience. And it was refreshing to know that we had something in common. We worked at a VWA, which is a victim witness advocate, and we know that it is hard work, and we know that it's not easy navigating families or individuals into the criminal justice system, to navigate them through the process. My question for you is that we have seen an increase in gun violence across our country, even in our communities. If nominated, how would you prioritize family safety in cases involving threats of gun violence?
I don't think you can understate the importance of safety, particularly in a family environment, when you're talking about the dangers of firearms. I would, my practice, if confirmed, I think safety is going to be a priority for me for children. Certainly, if there's concerns about guns in a household, that would certainly shape my perspective in drafting plans, or ultimately just protecting the children that are before me.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. Counsel Dolan.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to see you. I really appreciate your conversation. I want to commend you for going to Fitchburg State and being a sociology major, and also for being a bar advocate. I think those combinations give you an incredibly solid foundation for understanding how the world really works and working with people and understanding their lives. I just want to ask you a couple of questions because you have a whole lot more counselors to get through. Guardians ad litem perform an essential service, yet sometimes parties can feel that the guardian ad litem is not being as objective or as fair as they want to be, and I think that can lead to difficulties in resolving cases. So how would you make sure that the parties really feel that the guardian ad litem was being that your reading of their report was objective?
I mean, I think first, that's a good point. I think first, when a judge is looking at a guardian ad litem report, they have the discretion to follow all of the facts that were determined and the recommendations that were made. Some of the facts and recommendations that are made, or none of them. I mean, ultimately, that's up to the judge. And if I was a judge in that situation, if I found that the report that was submitted to the court was not fair or balanced, I think I would have concern about adopting the recommendations, the findings by the GAL.
Thank you. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about coercive control, which is now can be used as the basis for a restraining order. It's been said many times in this chamber that restraining orders are overused, and I think they often are. But I think that when it comes to coercive control, they may in fact be underused. And I think that one of the reasons, as we talked about, is that, you know, it's new, there may not be enough clarity. I want to ask you what we need to clarify, but before we do, I asked you to define coercive control, and you gave such a good definition that I wrote it down and I want to share it to people. You said it was where a party is exerting control over the other party, that they are not able to exercise their judgments and ability to be independent of the. I thought that really nicely summed it up.
Thank you.
Do you think there's an issue around clarity and understanding of what coercive control is? And what do you think? If so, what do you think we should do about it?
I think that there, in my practice, and that's all I can speak to is my practice. I think that's a new amendment to the statute. And I think practitioners, I think litigants, I think even judges are still kind of learning how to apply that factor to restraining order matters. I think that it's probably it is a concern that maybe particularly the litigants don't understand that is a potentially a vital component of obtaining a restraining order, and that might stop them from applying, because I think it is valid. It's obviously set by statute, but I think it is a valid purpose that somebody would need the protection of an order. So I think it you know, it certainly is something that I think as time goes on, more people will hopefully become more educated on the use of it.
I'm confident that you'll recognize it when you see it, and that nuance me. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you so much. Councilor Lyonel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Let me start right off the bat by saying he's your biggest advocate. Other than that family you've got, he's number one. No, as I sit here, I sat in the chair for a long time. I just look at that team there. They are so proud. You just see it in their expressions. I mean, oh my God, you're really lucky. 5 plus the wife, 5 kids, right?
Yes, yeah. 4 are here and 1 is still at school. He had an exam this morning.
Okay, but at least these 4, the wife, I mean, that's important. I like that a lot. And to me, it tells me you and your wife are really good parents. And that to me is more important than where you go to school, that's what it's about. That for me anyway. You seem to be humble, you seem to be a man of faith, and those things are really important. Okay. Having said that, when I ask this question, think of your kids here. Put the law aside for a second. What do you think your personal view of the removal statute?
I think it can really have harsh consequences.
So if your kids may not know what that is, you may want to tell them real quick, what's this removal statute?
So the removal statute gives one parent an ability to remove the child from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to a state in which they plan to live in. And so the statute provides, there's a standard that must be applied, but the statute provides a basis of which a judge can authorize the removal of the children from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to another state.
And your personal view, put the law aside, what do you think about it?
I think it can have harsh consequences. I think that you know, certainly I value, in my own personal relationship, but just like in general, the relationship that both parties, parents have with their children. And I think when you are talking about removing a child from the geographical area of where the child lives and the relationship that party has, child has with a parent, I think it is potentially it could be harmful to that child and the relationship. There are circumstances, and there's a standard to be applied, but there are circumstances where it may be appropriate and it may be something that both parents think is acceptable.
Well, that's easy. I'm talking about, it's not, both parents they're not in agreement. Anything that's an agreement, that's easy. I wanna make it hard for you, show you how they disagree.
So I think again, as a judge, hearing a case, it would be important to me to know what the relationship is but that both parents have with the child, and removing that relationship where they are in the same geographical area and the child is going to go across to a different state is something that would weigh heavy on me, and be something that I really would think about.
So let me ask you this. Let's assume you got some kids, out of you complain. You make a complaint and they want to move them out, my wife, I'm happily married, but so Idaho, okay, let's be fair, that relationship with the kids is over. Okay, you got someone and then someone doesn't work, okay. So my question is, in Jamaica Plain, we live in a tenement house, okay? We live in a 3-family, we're on the top floor, you know, when we want heat, we gotta bang the pipes. But they go to Idaho, or wherever I said, there's a huge 6,000 square foot home, 2 acres of land. Would that be a fact? Would that be one factor you would consider?
I don't think it would be, so the test that gets applied is the real advantage test. I don't think that to me would be part, that I would believe as a real advantage. I think the relationship.
Would not consider it at all. That's what I'm saying, however slight, would it be a fact?
I think as a judge, you have to consider all of the facts that are before you, but that would not be, on the priority of things that I would have to think about. That would not be high on that list.
But it would be some of them.
It would be a fact that it would be somewhere on the list, probably low on the.
What if the person who's seeking the removal of the kids now has got a job offer of $200,000, and that person in Massachusetts was making $50,000? Would that be a factor, however slight?
That would be a factor, yes.
Even though the parent here, more likely than not, because in my opinion, it's over, that relationship. It's just my opinion. Would it be a factor if the parent who wants to move the kids out is gonna remarry, and her husband is making a lot of money? What's a lot of money? Let's say the husband's making, her new husband is making $600,000 a year, and her present husband is working 12 hours or 10 hours or 9 hours a night, and he's making $70,000. Would that be a factor, however slight?
I think, new employment can be a factor that could be weighed. Again, I think the relationship between the child and both parents is probably higher up on the list. But I think the parent that is removing, if their subsequent spouse has found a new job in a different state, that is at least a factor that I would be thinking about.
Okay, even though you have to concede a little that the relationship would be severely deteriorated if the kids had to move out.
Absolutely, that would be a big factor for me is that relationship and how it would be affected in that situation.
What is the number one factor? You know what's in the best interest of the kids and all that, but I gave you some examples. Most of them you said would be a factor, but low. in the priority list, what to, and without saying, oh, it's ever in the best interest, that's the line right here on page 2. What's the number one factor, or the number 1 or 2 on the high priority list? Because the ones I said, and I totally agree, I'm not even sure I put them on the list myself. That may be the law, but you know what? They can't fire you. Nobody can fire you. And you're a man of faith, you got family. I don't know, luckily I'm not gonna be in charge, it'd be really hard for me. And yeah, you can get overturned, that's okay. But what would be the number 1 or 2 criteria for you in order for somebody to remove the case out of the way?
I think number one, the relationship that the children had with the parent that was staying in state, how substantial that relationship was, had that parent availed themselves to that relationship with the child. I think that would be probably my number 1 factor in looking at. If there was a medical reason why the parent needed to move out of state, that there was, I'll just make up the reason, but if there was a medical reason where there was treatment in a different state that that parent had to go to get, that was specialized treatment, that would weigh on me pretty heavily.
I agree with both of those, by the way. Like a job for what? I know, I do. What's on one spot was on, oh, you listen, parent. You know, I agree with that. Under what circumstances, if any, I don't do divorces, so family law, I'm a perfect believer with it, so if I don't use the right terminology, you can correct me that. Under what circumstances would you have like an even undetermined for the children in a divorce situation? Obviously, this would be a sole custody issue.
I think it would be under that circumstance. I think the statute allows, and if the custody is disputed, to appoint a guardian ad litem. If there was a question in my mind, maybe regarding certain factual issues between the parents, if there's an issue of substance abuse or something like that, it could be a good use of a guardian ad litem. It can be to, assist the court in developing a parenting plan.
Okay, but I also said, it may not be done, again, I don't do divorces. But I am familiar with a case that the judge appointed a guardian ad litem and an attorney for the children, 2 different people. Under what circumstances would you appoint 2 separate people?
So the roles of an art counsel and guardian ad litem are distinctly different. The role of an art counsel is to speak with the children and determine what their wishes or desires are as it relates to parenting plan, potentially custody. And so that lawyer that's appointed as art counsel would do that. If in the case that's before me, the position of one of the parents is, well, the kids are telling me that they want to stay with me, they don't want to go with their mother or their father, then sometimes art counsel can be helpful to speak to the children. That it differs from a guardian ad litem, where the guardian ad litem's responsibility is to determine the best interest of the child. So it's not necessarily what the child wants. They certainly will speak to the child, those children. They will talk to them about what their wishes and desires are, but that's not their role to determine, what the child wants. It's what's in their best interest.
So the conversation yesterday, I totally agree with you 1000%. That if you have a custodial visitation, whatever the terminology is, before you even hear the facts of the case, I believe you told me that you started off with 50-50. Because they use these nice joint custody. Well, I don't know what joint custody means. 92% to 8, that's joint custody. But at least you start off, and then other factors after that, to have a 50-50 relationship. Because for me, put the money aside, I don't care about that. I feel like I'm a strong advocate for children. That's to me is the most important thing. Speaking of being a strong advocate of children, it kills me when, temporary orders, and the judge gives both sides a total of a half an hour. Okay, 15 minutes aside, you gotta talk about what type of parenting plan, you gotta talk about support. How can you get, it's so important The visitation plan, what are you gonna give them 5 minutes to make an argument? And to me, you read a book to your kid at night when they're 5, 6 years old, you watch a movie with them, I'm such a big fan of that. I have no further questions. I love your family, Grant. I know I don't know, but it's that enthusiasm. And I would hope one thing, if you could remember those, how many kids you have? 4. Remember those kids when you make a decision about custody and visitation, because that to me is the most important job of a judge at the probate and family court. I think you're gonna be a great judge. I'm gonna enthusiastically support you. I love you. You're humble, like I said, you appear to be a person of faith. You grew up hardworking with the chickens and ducks, whatever the hell you had. You couple now?
3 dogs.
Oh, 3 dogs. No, we got a total, yeah, but no, best of luck to you and your family.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Ziegler.
Thank you. Really great to meet you in person. Congratulations on making it to this stage.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the time you took to have a conversation with me prior to today about your candidacy and just how you see yourself in the court. We talked about what the pressing issues of the court are. And I felt that your assessment was quite interesting in that you said the self-representation was a big factor, and you gave a figure of about 70% of individuals, namely, that were self-represented. You talk a little bit more about how you would support individuals that come before you, should you be that are self-represented, and how you would connect them with necessary resources.
It's a great question, thank you. I think if a self-represented party comes before me, I think it is incumbent on the judge that is overseeing the case to make sure that they, as the party comes before him, that they know the process, to explain to them. You obviously give them legal advice, that there's a process involved. So educating them on the process of maybe what the pleading that needs to be filed in order to have their voice heard in a particular situation. There's also referrals that the judge can make. There's in Bristol County, there's a court clinic that assists parties that are self-represented by kind of walking them through the forms to file and how to file certain forms. There is programs in different counties. I used to volunteer in Bristol County when it was there, the Lawyer of the Day program. So you can refer them to the Lawyer of the Day program to give them the ability to have a lawyer sit down with them, even if it's for a few minutes, to walk them through, things that they need to file. In Massachusetts now, they allow limited assistance representations of parties, and I know we're talking about self-representative, but what I found in my practice is sometimes people don't have to come up with for a big retainer, but they do have some money that they might be able to hire somebody for a particular hearing, and that's a referral that you can make, that if to a lawyer maybe that has an ability to do limited assistance representation. That is what I find sometimes is helpful, where they can just get in the case for a specific purpose, and then they can move on. So I think referrals in that regard can be made, but that's essentially how I would hope to approach them.
And I ask that because I anticipate that percentage going up for people being self-represented, because times are tough right now. There are lots of individuals who are in a tough economic situation, and in that same vein, see an increase in housing insecurity and home. My fellow colleagues on the council will know I talk about this a lot, because it's something that any person who sits in the seat you're sitting in now will have to encounter. And so, that being said, how would you seek to assess whether housing insecurity is a factor in the case that's brought before you?
So as it relates to housing and security, sometimes what will happen is that will come out in the part of the case, either in the pleadings or it's an issue in the case that's brought before the court. And maybe it's a parent that is looking to adjust the parenting schedule because the other parent is losing their housing. And they might not have, an ability to have the child and then for whatever their parenting schedule is. So I think that is probably the situation in which it would come to the court. So, when judges are, preparing for court on a given day, the cases that are scheduled, there's, the assistant judicial case manager, judge, look through the docket, look through the actual pleadings, familiarize themselves with what is on for that day. And if that sort of issue is part of the case, then I think that first and foremost, you're just aware of the issue. The second piece is if that is part of the case and somebody is temporarily losing their housing, if you have to adjust the parenting plan, you certainly would want to recognize that maybe that matter should be brought in back for a review date in short order. So once that housing is restabilized, that the parenting plan can be reestablished. So kind of put them back to where they were. So I think it's just being aware of it.
Similar question, but with regard to domestic violence. Right, we've seen fortunately increases in domestic violence at home, whether the parent-child partner violence. How would you, and these cases are complex, right? How would you approach those type of cases that come before you?
I mean, it's safety of the parties that appear before you has to be, the number one issue when you're coming in and when you're serving as a judge or in a family law case. I think safety is paramount. It's safety of the parties. If the situation is, if there's domestic violence in the house, it's also shielding the children from the trauma that results from what they witness in a household. So I think you have to, number one, be aware of that and if there's an issue concerning safety, then that has to be something that you either, if there's an issue, if there's an application for a restraining order that's before you, that you consider that. Or if there's a temporary order that's the motion that's filed, that you consider that as well. Like maybe you put safeguards in place to protect the party and protect the child.
So there's no question that you have a great deal of experience. But no matter how much information we know, it's always more to learn. What would you perceive to be your biggest learning curve? How would you go about filling in that knowledge gap?
Thank you for that question. I think when you're starting any job in life, any job that I've ever started, there's a learning curve. And so I think for me, one of the things that come to mind is more the technical nature of being a judge, of which, I haven't really experienced yet. So, as it relates to sitting on the bench and the particular form that needs to be checked off or filled out, understanding that sort of kind of the formalistic part of being a judge that, will take time as you're kind of getting into, the throes of sitting there. So I think that is probably one of the things that I would, have to learn.
Well, yeah, there's a lot. There's definitely a lot. And my last question would be, assuming that you're concerned about this body, what would you like your legacy on bench?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think at the end of the day, if after, I've gone through my practice as a judge and somebody, the general consensus is that I've been fair, that I've been diligent, that I've listened, and they may not agree with how I have ruled on a particular case, but at least they felt heard and that I've been fair. That's the legacy that I would want.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I wish you luck in this process. It seems like so far you have a bit of support, and it's nice to see your family. I know we talked about your 5 kiddos. I'm on the early end of your trajectory there with your family. But really great to see you, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you. I'm gonna echo Councilor Lyonel a little bit in that my good friend Councilor Ferrara is certainly the biggest fan you have in the room, I think. He's been talking about you for a while, very supportive. And I agree with Council Ionello about your children. You seem terrific. I had the opportunity speaking with your 3 daughters before you came up in the elevator, and 2 out of 3 supported you on that. I think one of them was concerned she might have to stand up when you come in the room from now on, so she wasn't 100% supportive.
Terry, she had to walk the dogs, Tom.
Anyway, the biggest complaints I get, when judges get confirmed, they get on the bench, and every once in a while, I'm in court every day, I'll start hearing complaints about some of them. People aren't happy with their demeanor, they're not happy with their knowledge of the law. Sometimes people slip people's rights. The most complaints I get, and I don't practice in probate court, is about probate judges. And I think to a certain extent, it's the nature of the business. You know, the people are going through very difficult times. And don't always feel as though they're getting treated fairly by the court system. Sometimes situations where judges have little or no discretion on child support guidelines. And sometimes where they have a lot of discretion and the people don't feel they were treated well. The biggest complaint I get, and I brought this up many times during these hearings, is when someone's going through this process, they have a trial. And the judge allots 3 or 4 hours for a trial or whatever amount of time. And then time's up. See you in 3 months to finish it. Now, a number of things happen when you break up a trial like that. Judges are human. They don't remember everything. They've seen 1,000 cases in between. They take notes. But notes, they don't help you with remembering somebody's demeanor necessarily when you're assessing credibility. They don't help you, just eyeballing the case and trying to figure out what's going on. And I've had people say, geez, we did the first half of the trial, the judges seem to be going my way all the way, and then I come back and they're going the other way. It's like it was a different trial, a different person. Why do you have to break those cases up? I do a lot of criminal work. We start a case, we finish it. Everything else gets bumped because you got to finish the trial. I don't know why the probate court can't operate that way. What are your thoughts on that? There was a question, not just a speech.
I'm glad you brought that up. There actually is a new standing order that the probate court has issued concerning consecutive trial dates. So the goal now is this is
Chief Justice Casey calls that the Kennedy order. Go ahead.
Kennedy order. Well, Your Honor, it is now the goal is going to be scheduling consecutive trial dates just for the very issue that you talk about. I know as a practitioner in the years that I've tried cases, it is really hard just for a lawyer to be able to get up to speed and you try that first the day of trial and then you're not back in there for 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is. It's really hard. So recognizing that, the court has issued a new standing order. So I think hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, that will no longer be a concern from your constituents, because I think the trial court is really trying to address that issue.
We had an opportunity to speak on the phone. I did have the opportunity to meet your family. I think they're terrific. I really do. I agree with Council. I know you can just see it about it, but I don't think they have to stand up when you get in the room, but they should call you judge at home or Your Honor. But other than that, I look forward to voting for you guys.
Thank you. Mr. DiPaolo.
Thank you, Counselor. Good morning. Good morning. We had a good conversation on the telephone. I mentioned there also Counselor Ferreira, and Counselor Ferreira is an incredible advocate for his district in particular, and for the quality attorneys coming out of that area. So I'm grateful when I have his input. I have a regional chip on my shoulder as well, although we are very well taken care of by this governor. So We talked a little bit about conversive control. We talked a little bit about valuations on businesses or other potentially complex financial assets. When that comes up, and I raise that, practitioners ask me questions about that, regardless of who the nominee is. I did want to ask about one thing that was kind of discussed today. My understanding, and I am not a probate practitioner, is that in Massachusetts, the standard is in fact best interest of the child when it comes to custody and most other things, right?
Yes.
So we do not have a default arrangement of parenting between parents. Like we don't walk in with a bias of 50-50. Is that accurate?
I want to make sure I understand your question. Are you saying, is there a legal standard that you walk in with that custody will be shared?
Correct.
Okay.
My understanding is there is not.
There is not.
And I ask this because I know my understanding, and I happen to have just read about this, and we didn't discuss this on the phone, so this is not a gotcha question. But my understanding from things I've read recently is that there's only 4 states in the country that have a default 50-50 custody arrangement. And it started with Kentucky a few years ago. And what happened in Kentucky when they defaulted to 50-50 is they saw divorce rates go way down. And some people celebrated that. But critics say, well, of course, divorce rates are going down. Spouses in abusive relationships or in relationships with a partner who's abusing children is terrified to seek divorce and risk having their children with the abusive partner 50% of the time. So those are the kinds of ramifications I think about, but this is not Massachusetts, right? We are not entirely. We had a great conversation. I love your demeanor in particular. And all the folks who I spoke with had very high praises to sing for you. And we need good judges in probate court, especially now, urgently. And I just want to add that relative to Councilor Kennedy's question and some of the functioning of the court, I've been hearing really great things in Worcester, at least, from practitioners about the new Chief Justice and all the things that are happening as we have a new set of eyes and the progress we're making. So I'm excited to have you added to that bench. So thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. Alderman Jacobs.
Thank you. Well, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming out to sit down and talk with me. We did have a good in-depth conversation when you came out. I do have some questions for you. So I'm not intending to be redundant or repetitive, but some of my questions are in a similar, and yet my focus is different vein of things that have been talked about already by other members of council. So bear with me as some things seem like I'm diving in exactly the same place because it is a slightly different lens that I want to bring to it. A bunch of the questions I'm bringing in actually have been shared with me from, to Councilor Kennedy's point, parents, women, especially mothers, but not exclusively mothers, but, people in high conflict, high domestic violence oriented divorce proceedings who have had less than stellar family court experiences and have shared their concerns, but also shared their questions. If they were in my role, how would they vet people for the court that they are struggling with right now? And so their stories are absolutely gut-wrenching to hear. But they do lead to interesting areas of issues surrounding the probate family court, the law, and how judges own personal biases can affect outcomes. So let me start with a question around just let me start with a question. Do you believe that a parent's right to see their children trumps child safety in the event that there is allegations of child abuse in the home?
I would not agree with that. No, I think ultimately the highest priority is child safety. I think it always has to be. I think that's always something that has to come first.
No, I appreciate that. Are you aware of there's quantitative research out there that has looked at courts across the nation and actually I think they even went global, but they've, US primarily, that shows there's a gender bias in family courts where when it tends to be gendered, but it is, the data had a subset of reverse gender, but the bulk of it is mothers bring allegations of child abuse or domestic violence, partner abuse to the courts. It negatively impacts their custody. Like they lose custody when they make allegations. Like they looked at 15,000 cases and statistically the data shows that trend. So I kind of wanted to get your personal response to that and how you might address a bias like that from the bench for yourself.
I would say, first of all, that's a disturbing report. I would certainly hope if I was a judge in a case that somebody wouldn't be afraid to come forward because they would fear that there would be some reprisal of losing custody in an allegation. So I would say that is a troubling report. As a judge, I think, we always kind of have to think about our own internal biases that we have. I think everybody has, some form of implicit bias that you have to really stop. And I think, I remember there was some jury instructions that came out, model jury instruction concerning implicit bias, which I think are actually a great way for any fact finder to kind of look at. And that is when you are sitting as a fact finder in a case, it is important to slow the process down. That when you're, there's a lot of facts that are coming before you that you, in your mind, you slow the process down. So you're thinking clearly when you're thinking. Secondly is that when you're evaluating credibility or you're making decisions on certain pieces of evidence and things like that, that you're doing it based on that evidence that's before you and nothing else is clouding your perspective. And then lastly, you have that internal sort of question, am I looking at this differently based on the parties that are in front of me, if depending on gender or race or, what their socioeconomic status is, and making sure, I would hope that would not play a part, but I think we all have to question that. And I think that those instructions were important because I think it breaks it down to, for all of us to kind of examine when we're making decisions in life, how are we making them? So I think that's how I would probably address it.
No, I appreciate that. I think you're bringing up a lot of key facets. It leads me to a segue question, or a follow-up question on, in your practice, how much experience do you have with people who have been trauma impacted, be it through domestic violence or otherwise, and how much familiarity do you have around sort of how that can show up in court, the anxiety of the traumatic situation, the impact on actual memory retention of a traumatic event? Psychologically, there's memory loss can occur when something highly violent, highly traumatic has occurred. And there can be in a court setting a loss of credibility for a victim in that setting. So I'm just curious about your experience with that and how you might mitigate that.
Thank you for that. I think that I have a lot of experience based in just my practice, my private practice, representing people in domestic matters that have been victims of domestic abuse. And it is, to me, I think it becomes apparent if you have a close relationship with that client that this sort of maybe even before they disclose it, that the party is a victim of domestic violence. Some cases it's not that easy, but there are cases that are, and I think you can see when you bring people into court and somebody that's been abusive to them are in the same room, you can see the reaction sometimes, and it becomes not only just emotional, it can be a physical reaction, and to the extent that anybody that's been practicing family law and has done it for a while, you try to shield your client from that. There's certain necessaries that you have to do. You have to be in court. You certainly try to shield your clients from, being re-victimized by, a close relationship where the person that's been, treated them, abused them, they're not having that same, affecting close proximity to them.
No, I appreciate that awareness for sure. So I have a bunch of other questions around that area, but I actually want to divert into another area. So we talked about where you grew up, you talked about the farm, we talked about the community that you lived in, and I think it's somewhat fair to say it's a rural-esque, if not fully rural experience. And so I represent Western Mass, which has a number of very rural communities, very small communities. And I hear from people in my district about the specific dangers of being in a high conflict, high violence impacted relationship, coming to court. And literally there are infrastructural dangers of being in a rural community and traveling to court. So if you need to take a bus and you're waiting at the bus stop and you're from a small community, like literally people know why you're going. It becomes a danger moment for victims in the course of getting to court. We have some courthouses in Western Mass that have a lot of glass windows and they're beautiful and the light comes in and that's all wonderful, but there's no privacy. You can see the people arriving. You can literally see who's coming to court. You can see them in the courthouse and the dangers there and stories of assaults in parking lots or followed home from court, things like that. And so I share all of, and it actually goes on and on. There was just so many facets of the dangers inherent in availing yourself of the court when you're in that kind of a situation. And so the question I want to ask you is how much you think about these things, how much work you do to be aware of these things. And as a judge, you do have quite a bit of influence in terms of scheduling, in terms of other elements that can increase and make court a less dangerous space. And so what your thoughts are on that?
I think as a practitioner, in those situations where there was domestic violence perpetrated on my client, I would always make sure that I try to shield them as much as I can, either meeting them in the parking garage, walking them in, having the case called at a time that's not when it's going to be super busy. So, there's court offices usually throughout the courthouse, but if it's a busy time, then the court offices might not see certain behaviors that happen. So making sure you try to handle it on that side. As a judge, I think if that is an allegation in the case, I think what a judge has to do is, as far as your scheduling of matters, if you know that domestic violence is a part of the case, scheduling them the cases so there's different, you can schedule at different times during the day. So maybe you schedule it first thing in the morning. So that interaction with the person that they're involved with, that there's been abuse, is going to be quick. It's going to be the first time in the morning. They're not going to be sitting across a courtroom from each other where through the course of the day things are going to be said or mumbled and faces and things like that might be harmful. So you try to get them in and you try to get them out, or you have them called at, maybe have the case called at 2 o'clock when it's again less busy, but again you can get them in and get them out. So there's certain things you can do. You can ask your court officers in the courtroom if there's a particular situation concerning stuff that's going on in the courtroom, to be aware of it. So it in the event, and I've seen this in my practice where court officers are generally really good at spotting that. And if there's that issue, they may have that one person sit outside until the case is called. So you break that sort of connection and that ability to kind of harm the other side.
No, I do appreciate that. Last question. What's your thought? So again, in these high conflict, where there's allegations of domestic abuse relationships, what's your thought about court-directed co-parenting counseling? What are your thoughts about it, and would you advocate for it, against it? What's the pros and cons of it?
Right. So it's a good question. I generally think co-parenting therapy can be helpful, particularly in cases that it's hard in domestic violence cases, but I think typically in just high conflict cases, it's helpful because you're allowing maybe some dysfunction that's been in the interpersonal relationship between the parties to be worked out through therapy. So I think it can be helpful. So I think that would certainly be a pro, because it's going to establish helping out the family and maybe in working through with therapeutic measures to get to maybe a parenting plan that's both parties feel is more fair and equitable. So there is definitely, I think, positives to that, but the negative potentially could be in a situation where that session is used, if there is a domestic violence, part of the case where that session can be used to almost keep the person captive in that environment, in that relationship. I will say though, I think generally speaking, therapists are that I've experienced in my practice are good at spotting that sort of dynamic. And if that happens, usually discontinues the therapy, and then it gets obviously reported as part of the case, and the case can go in a different direction. But so I think there's, that's how if that happens, how I see it taken care of.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate your answers to all those questions.
Thank you very much. Councilor Lyonel, you needed another 20 seconds?
Just a comment.
Yes.
We have a very important person here today. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the Chief Justice of the Probate and Family Court, Ryan Dunn. Doing a great job so far. I know you've just been on the helm for what, 2 months or so?
Yeah.
And I gotta tell you that, big shoes to fill. Casey did a great job. And also his, I don't know the terminology, but Deputy Administrator Dominic DeCenzo, he's fantastic. But good to see you, Chief.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for being here, Chief. Appreciate it. I don't have any questions. You have an amazing reputation in Bristol County and other counties as well. You have great family. You're gonna be a great judge. So glad that you applied. I'll just end with, I went through the process 25 years ago. I never felt so humiliated and pissed off at the judge yelling at me, saying that joint physical custody never works. Well, it did work. It worked phenomenal. I have now, my kids are 25, 30, and 33. And I have the best relationship with my 3 girls ever. I saw them almost every day. So it does work, and I'm sure you're gonna continue that. Give everybody a fair shot. You're gonna make a great judge. Congratulations and thank you. And one last point. I got the stats today. There's only there's 11 male judges out of 51, so about 21% male. So we do need, and I hear from women and men alike that work in the probate court every day, we need more men on the bench. I'm very happy that the governor nominated you and the next nominee. So thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
We're here to hear from the nominee. I'm going to read the governor's letter. Dear councilors, I'm pleased to nominate Lyonel Jean-Pierre Jr. to the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. Sincerely, Maura T. Healy. And we'd like to hear from your witnesses. I understand we have the Executive Director of Community Legal Aid, Jonathan Menina. You could come forward.
Starts.
Go ahead.
My name's Jonathan Menina. Honored to be here with you today to speak about Lyonel Jean-Pierre, whose nomination I enthusiastically support. I'm the Executive Director of Community Legal Aid. We're the civil legal aid provider for Central and Western Massachusetts. We have about 200 staff, and we're funded by the state to provide free civil legal services to low-income folks and seniors in our service area in a variety of practice areas, domestic relations being one of the biggest ones. Lyonel joined Community Legal Aid. We had a different name back then in 2006. He was one of the first people I hired when I became executive director, and what a great hire he really was. He was with us for 10 years and developed into an accomplished and skilled family law practitioner, helping hundreds of litigants in challenging cases involving divorce, child custody, child support, and other areas. During his tenure with us, he was trained and mentored by retired probate and family court judge Edward Ginsburg, who was with us for a number of years and trained and mentored our family law team. Judge Ginsburg trained Lyonel and really emphasized the importance of legal analysis and knowing the complexities of family law inside and out, and regularly gave Lyonel a view from the bench in terms of the challenges faced by probate and family court judges. Aside from his legal skills, what Judge Ginsburg and I recognized from early on was probably Lyonel's greatest sense is his people skills. And what do I mean by that? He has great empathy, and he's an incredible listener and communicator. He never loses his cool. He truly is the most unflappable person I've ever met in my life. He treats everyone, I mean everyone, with great respect and dignity and grace, whether that was a client he was representing who was emotionally charged in a case, sometimes difficult opposing counsel, or all the folks he worked with down at the courthouse. Lyonel left us in 2016. We were really sad to see him leave, but I think really what happened the next few years was important for his development as a lawyer, and will make him a more well-rounded judge if he's fortunate enough to be appointed. He joined a well-respected Worcester law firm, Murphy and Rudolph, whose founding partner is now a U.S. District Court judge here in Boston. He then went to work on at Harvard Legal Aid, and mentored and supported many law students, many of them who practice in probate and family court. During that time, Lyonel was never really far from our minds. When we had an opening on a board of directors, we thought of Lyonel, reached out. He served on our governance body for a number of years and ably contributed to the governance of the organization. And then we had an opening for managing attorney in Worcester, which is our biggest office and where the company started in the 1950s. And Lyonel was really the first person who came to mind for the position. We reached out, he decided to join us, and he's been doing that the last 3 years. Managing attorney is really a difficult position with many different facets, and Lyonel has excelled at all of them. What I really want to emphasize, no task is too small or too large for Lyonel, whether it's handling complaints from clients who are upset, whether it's managing a large staff and ensuring a collaborative and supportive environment, providing legal supervision and mentoring to staff, being the face of the company and the community, building and sustaining relationships with community partners and the local bar association, and managing the physical plant, and doing all the little things that staff need to do to succeed in the office, even if it involves getting his hands dirty. And just a silly little example, but I think it tells you the type of person Lyonel is, as he's obviously focused on this hearing today and everything that comes with it. I found him Saturday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, building a bookcase for somebody in the office. It's not his job description, but the point is he's always really willing to go the extra mile to put people in a good place. I think it's also important to note that Lyonel is a family man, and together with his wife Betsy, has raised 3 wonderful children. He's a devoted father and has somehow managed to have a very demanding job and really be involved in their lives and excelling at that job. Well, while it's obviously not a criterion to serve on the probate and family court bench, He really appreciates the importance of the family unit, understands the stakes are incredibly hard for all the litigants, regardless of what side they're on, what position they take, where they come from, what their position is. I will say over the course of my legal career, I've appeared countless times in many state and federal courts. We've been fortunate to have a number of staff at Legal Aid become judges, and this body has approved over the years. I can honestly say that I can think of no other person who's as ready and well-suited to be probate and family court than Judge Lyonel. He has the legal skills and acumen to do the job. He has the patience and empathy that are really critical in any court, particularly the probate and family court, where there's so many pro se litigants and emotions are really charged. And I have no doubt he will be a valued and respected colleague for all the folks at the courthouse he works with. I urge you to appoint him. He's the real deal. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes to talk about him this morning.
Thank you very much. And I understand we have another witness to speak in favor of the nomination.
My name? Excuse me?
Of course. Oh, sorry.
You gonna ask a question?
You knew it then. Only my second now.
Question's fair.
Oh, go for it.
I just want to thank you for how nice you are to my daughter.
Okay.
She has very, very nice things to say about you, and I appreciate how you treat her.
I appreciate that. It's been a joy having her on staff.
Well worth it. Any other questions? No other questions?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Haley Kulikowski, and I'm happy to be here to offer my support for Lyonel's nomination. I've known Lyonel since 2020 when we worked at the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau together. He was my clinical instructor. The Harvard Legal Aid Bureau is a 2-year clinic at the Harvard Law School and that serves low-income folks in the greater Boston area. I applied to be part of the family practice unit, and I was lucky enough to have Lyonel assigned to be my clinical instructor and supervisor. Lyonel really formed me as an attorney. He modeled for me what a good attorney is, and I think of him often as I practice now as a public benefits attorney in New York State. He modeled for me dedication and commitment. He was always dedicated to his work and went above and beyond in helping me develop my skills as a lawyer. So as you can imagine, as a second-year law student, I was terrified to grab a caseload of 5 to 6 family cases, and Lyonel held my hand throughout the entire way. He prepped with me oral arguments. He edited and re-edited my legal documents, and made himself available late nights, over holidays when we had a grueling 2-day trial. And so because of his meticulous work, because of how knowledgeable he was, I really felt like I was able to grow as an attorney and grab confidence to implement our legal strategies for our clients. Lyonel also always modeled professionalism for me. He, as you all know, family law is very difficult and emotional. And, we're working with clients who are having some of the worst times of their life. And Lyonel always, approached everything in such a cool, calm manner. I never once saw him lose his temper, lose his cool. He always, he never spoke a bad word about an opposing counsel, a client, a judge, even if I personally thought maybe they were being a little unreasonable. He was always, professional and cool and modeled that for me and helped me grow as an attorney in that way. He had a reputation in the Bureau's office as being the cool, calm, level-headed person. And students outside of the family law practice area would still come to Lyonel to ask him for his advice because he's an excellent problem solver. And people approached for both legal and non-legal issues, and everyone really enjoyed Lyonel's presence in the office. Lastly, he modeled for me empathy and kindness. He truly always went above and beyond in his job to make sure that we felt welcome. We worked together during the pandemic, and August of 2020 is when we started working together. And so it was a time of unprecedented change. And amidst the uncertainty, amidst the technology issues, he always made sure that students and clients alike felt welcome, listened to, and understood. And, he's always been there for me. And so when he called me and asked if I would speak here, I hopped on a plane right away to come. So I'm thrilled to be here to offer my support for Lyonel's nomination.
Thank you so much for making the trip. Does anyone have questions of this witness?
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. Are there any witnesses who oppose the nominee? Hearing none, I call upon the nominee to address the council.
Thank you, Chairperson Dolan, and Haley, thank you for not using notes and putting you on the spot, but some notes. Thank you, Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll for nominating me. I'm grateful for your trust. Thank you to the members of this council for taking the time to meet with me over the past few weeks and holding this hearing in consideration of my nomination for Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. Thank you, Chief Legal Counsel Jesse Boudou and Deputy Legal Counsel Daryl Kesselheim for the time you have dedicated to interviewing me and vetting me for this opportunity. I also extend my gratitude and thanks to all the members of the JNC who performed their due diligence during the vetting process leading to this nomination. Thank you, Chief Justice Dunn, for being here today, for being welcoming. Thank you to Secretary Sonia Altamirano and her staff for managing the logistics and being available to answer questions. I'd like to extend a very special thanks to everyone who has supported me through the application and interview process. I will not name everyone because I think we need to keep this hearing under 2 hours, but some folks have come today and I'm very grateful. Thank you to my family for coming today. My dad, Lyonel Sr., my brother, Dom, and my wife, Betsy. And I also thank those family members who were not able to make it, Mom, who I know is watching, and from far. Lastly, but certainly not least, thank you to my witnesses, Jonathan Medina, Executive Director of Community Legal Aid, and to Haley Kolakowski, one of my former clinical law students from the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, for taking time out of your busy schedules, and even traveling from upstate New York, Haley, thank you, and providing your generous statements to this committee. It is a sincere honor to be here with all of you today. And one person who is not here, who you heard a little bit from Jonathan Medina, and I wish he could be a part of this moment, is retired Judge Edward Ginsburg, who we lost in June of 2023. When I joined Community Legal Aid as a staff attorney in 2006, he was there as a supervisor and mentor, and over time, I came to see him as a friend. I know he's here in spirit, watching from above, probably trying to get my attention and give me some advice in that not so subtle, loud whisper of a voice that everyone can hear even though he thinks he's being quiet. Judge Ginsburg played an instrumental role in helping me learn the intricacies of practicing family law, and while doing so, he also took time to discuss with me some very important lessons that have helped keep me grounded to this day. And I will share with you 3 of those lessons. First, always have lunch. We never do our best work when we're here. Second, no matter how long we do this work of practicing law, whether as an attorney, a judge, or an academic, we will never know everything, and we should always be open to learning and improving, and to be excited for the opportunity to experience and engage with new concepts and ideas. And third, the third piece of advice he gave me was to prioritize the things that are most important in life. He recommended family and friends as number 1, the Red Sox second, religion third, if faith was important to me, and if it was not, then to find something else to be third, and then work as number 4 on the list. Well, the Red Sox were really his thing. This time of my life, and even though I cheer for all New England sports, my obsession is with the Revolution. That's correct, the soccer team, to which I have season tickets. I took Judge Ginsburg's life advice seriously, and so with this opportunity today, allow me to just share with you a few of the important lessons and characteristics that I've learned and adopted from the people closest to me, and that I know will guide me as Associate Justice if I am confirmed. Dad, Mom, over the years, I've been privileged to listen to you talk about your experience emigrating to the United States as teenagers with your respective families. You were not yet adults when you left Haiti, the only home that you knew. And at that time, the country was subject to dictator rule, politically motivated kidnappings, and significant economic inequity and poverty. You came to the United States excited for a new beginning and with the expectation of a better quality of life, only to be sobered by the unfortunate reality that your new home also came with its own set of challenges. Racial segregations in schools and neighborhoods, a law enforcement system focused on cracking down on those who dared to advocate for equal treatment under the law, and a host of government officials who routinely and openly questioned the necessity of lawmakers to ensure equal right protections for all. You had to acclimate into a way of life that was not always welcoming and kind, but you did it. What always struck me during our conversations was how you talked about these events with no sense of sadness, anger, disappointment, or really even a hint of trauma. Your perspectives were always measured, and the examples you set meaningful, as it was clear to me that you never let those challenges define you. You set goals for yourselves and worked hard to achieve them, and even when you felt you would not receive respect, you showed respect and kindness, always. Well, most always. Let's face it, Mom likes to bring the fire sometimes. I may have become the lawyer in the family, but she is the original advocate, whom I learned. She fights for what is fair and right, and I'm pretty sure is allergic to the words, no, you can't do that. Mom, I know you're watching. You are the strongest, boldest person I know. You hold true to your values and are resilient. And Dad, you are patient, a great listener, and the very definition of calm and cool. Just like on my first day of third grade, when you, Dad, dropped me off at my new school where I knew no one and was scared, I'm glad you're still here next to me, holding my hand as I approach this new adventure in my life. Dom, not so little brother. You were too young to remember this, but when I first met you in the hospital in Worcester, I placed my right index finger into your palm. And after a few seconds, you wrapped your tiny fingers around mine. It was an electric moment forever seared into my brain at the age of 11, as it was the first time I was suddenly not the center of my own life. In that moment, I made a promise to you to do whatever was necessary to set good examples for you and to be someone you could always be proud of and turn to whenever you needed. You inspired me to be the best version of myself at all times, and you still do today. In the past, whenever I doubted myself, and there were times when I did, I pushed through those second guessing because I didn't want you to think there were dreams that were too big for us to achieve, because that just is not true. Thank you for being my constant motivation to be my best self. My wife, Betsy, you are my compass and my North Star. When life seems too complicated, busy, and stressful, I can always turn to you to show me the way home, to joy, laughter, and most importantly, love from you and our 3 silly children with whom we can just be goofy and fun, except for when we need to clean the house or check homework or drive someone to some activity somewhere. Then we need to be serious, responsible adults and parents. With you, I have a partner I can trust and lean on when needed. From you, I have learned it's okay to rely on another, to be vulnerable, and to take care of myself so that I can better help those who rely on me. After our wedding, that he helped officiate, Judge Ginsburg told me to take a moment every day, no matter how brief, to be thankful that you chose me to make a life with and have a family. He said it was a decision I would never regret, and with a wink and a fiendish smile, he said he hoped you wouldn't regret making that choice either, but only time would tell. 15 years later, I think we're doing pretty good. Counselors, if you confirm my nomination as Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court, I will bring with me the many qualities that I have learned from those closest to me and I believe make me well prepared to serve on the bench. I will treat litigants and attorneys who appear before me respectfully, react to any and all situations thoughtfully, and try not to be controlled too much by the emotions of the defendant. And after hearing the facts and applying the relevant law, make decisions that are fair, equitable, and that take into consideration the best interests of the children when kids are involved. On the bench, I will adjudicate matters with humility and center focus on the litigants and their stories, and when managing the courtroom and making decisions, I will do so with empathy. I will continue learning and improving and will not be afraid to tackle new ideas and different challenges that may arise. I will serve the community faithfully and zealously and hold sacred the public trust that all judges are given to be fair and just. Martin Luther King said that it's not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not in favor of justice for all people. I believe it is the primary responsibility of the court to make justice available for everyone in our community, and that in doing so, the bench should reflect the community it serves. I will keep these principles and ideals in mind each time I put on the robe to serve our communities as an Associate Justice of the Court, if I'm confirmed. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much. Now we will turn this over to counselors. Questions, Counselor Ionella?
I think I don't have any questions. We have an assembly at 12, so I think that's okay. Don't have any questions. Just a quick comment. Your counselor and Counsel Paul DiPaolo both called me on your behalf. And again, like I said in the last hearing, you got the Chief Justice here, you got Dominic DeCenzo. You got 2 people. If you have any questions, nobody better than those 2. The Chief's only been here, what, a couple of months? I think we confirmed him 10, 15 years ago. You did a great job as Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. Other than that, you have a nice resume. I look forward to voting for you next week.
Thank you. I
I'm
appreciate
sorry,
it.
but you-
I love it. And by the way, Don,
No. You have to go.
I just want to thank Don. I'm sorry for thanking you. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ianella. Counselor Ziegler.
Thank you, Counselor. Congratulations on reaching this point. It's an honor to have you here. You know, it's been a long journey. We had a lovely conversation, and we share a lot of things in common. One being our heritage. My parents having immigrated from Haiti as well in their early 20s. It's such a joy to see your father here and your brother here. You can see the pride that's beaming off of them and know that comes from a sincere and deep place. The other thing, we had a lengthy conversation around resources for individuals that would come before you, should you be confirmed. We talked about domestic violence cases and how complex they are. And it was nice. I didn't see it on your application, but you had mentioned that you'd gotten the Great Guy Award from the YWCA, your local YWCA, and that is key. The YWCA does a lot of work with victims of domestic violence, in particular having advocates at courts to walk people through and hold their hand as they're putting themselves forward to get justice for their family. So I bring all that forward to say, how do you feel your experience having worked with or partnered with, you know, YWs, having partnered with other organizations such as legal aid? How do you feel that experience would impact your ability to oversee cases in which domestic violence is a key issue?
Yes, and thank you for that question. And I definitely enjoyed our conversation the other day and getting to hear your little guy in the background trying to get your attention. But I would say that with the work experience that I've had working with survivors of domestic violence for pretty much my entire career, that what I will be able to do in the courtroom is to really recognize those signs of trauma, and I think hopefully react appropriately to try to make the situation a little bit more comfortable for everyone involved, right? So if somebody is in the courtroom and I could tell from just you know, their body language or not making eye contact, or just signs of fear of being in the courtroom with this person who's alleged to be the abuser, you know, I would think about alternatives. So should we call the case earlier when there's not many people in the room? Should we close the courtroom? Maybe call the case later, or do a second call of the case. And I think just also just be mindful of how I have conversations with the litigants, right? And not to raise my voice or to be aggressive. I think that's something that I would recognize and be mindful of, again, just to make the experience a little bit more comfortable, and to recognize that there may be some issues that we need to be sensitive to.
You know, I appreciate that. I appreciate your view on the impact that this role has, right? The decisions that you make, they have a lasting, you know, impact on the lives that, you know, would come before you. One question that I love to ask candidates is, you know, should you be confirmed, you would be serving in this role for quite some time, right? What type of courtroom legacy would you like to establish?
That's an excellent question. And I would want, at the end of the day, my legacy to be that my courtroom was welcoming, that every litigant that walked into the courtroom felt they were heard, and that they were actually heard. And that doesn't mean necessarily that folks agree with every decision I make, but I would hope that at the end of the day, I will have explained my decisions, they understand where I'm coming from, there's no surprises, and that they are better equipped when they leave my courtroom to manage and deal with the difficulties that come with, you know, family separation, right? And so I want my legacy to be really, again, that inviting courtroom, and that I've explained enough of my decisions that people are able to go out there and manage their family separations. That's a little bit better than they did when they came in.
I appreciate that. And we know that sometimes access is an issue, language access in particular. And yourself being, you know, bilingual and coming from that background. I wanted to just highlight one of the things that you mentioned in our conversation, that, you know, you would see if there was a way to translate decisions that come down, or translate forms, so that individuals coming before you had a greater sense and understanding of the process. I think that's key. I will hold you to that if you get confirmed. But I appreciate you being here, and thank you again for taking the time to speak with me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Kennedy.
Thank you. When I heard that your name was coming up, and that you worked for Legal Community Aid in Worcester, I of course immediately called my daughter Alicia, who's an attorney in there, as you know. And I said, they're putting in somebody up named Lyonel Jean-Pierre. You know him? Lyonel, he's awesome. How do I vote against awesome? You know, as the first awesome nothing I've ever had, I have. You got a great recommendation from obviously someone who's very important to me, who works with you. So I'm gonna vote for you next week.
I appreciate that, and Alicia is awesome as well. I know Jonathan talked to you a little bit, but she has been a great addition to our organization, a great education director. So I'm very helpful with teaching staff and really helping with some of the big cases. So we're both pretty awesome, I would say.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor DePaula.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for applying and for going through the process. This is a really proud day for the Worcester legal community, I think, and I'm proud of how the community has come together over the last several years to support our best and brightest attorneys to be elevated to the bench. I have a stack of letters here from folks. Obviously, we had Jonathan Menina here today. We had one of your former clinical supervisees. Another one has a letter in here. Christina Paradiso, Leonardo Angiulo. Let's see. It's a long pile. I'm not gonna name it. But as you know, I'm very excited to see you elevated to the bench. I think it's great. I'm reminded even this morning of some of the challenges that we've had in Worcester Probate Court over the last several years. And I think everyone who practices in that area in Worcester is very excited to see you elevated, and sees you as someone with the demeanor and the temperament to be a consistently outstanding judge. So I look forward to supporting you. I'm anxious to get to the vote.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, can I just make one other?
Of course.
I neglected to mention that your counselor is a very big supporter, as is Counselor DePaul. He's talked about you a lot even before I knew you were.
Thank you. Very great.
That's kind of you, Counselor. Counselor Jacobs.
Thank you. It was great to see you. Thank you for coming out and sitting down with me. We had a much longer than I had scheduled for a conversation, covered so many things, but we did that because it was just such a great opportunity to talk to you about probate and family court and your experience, and it was a fascinating conversation that I very much enjoyed. So I don't have a ton of questions. I do know we have a little bit of a time crunch, but I have a couple that I do want to offer to hear your thoughts about. We talked about in your application, you talked about the concept of restorative justice practices and how they might be brought into probate and family court. I found that a fascinating concept and one well worth further discussion and consideration. And I think I offered to you at that point my thoughts about, you know, probate and family, where there are opportunities for diversion type programs, and that in Western Mass, Franklin County piloted a court that has been renamed a couple of times, but now I think is called the Wellness Court, but it started off being the Family Drug Court. And since that time, they've also found ways to creatively partner with juvenile court. And so with all of that context, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your thoughts about sort of the strengths and challenges of probate and family and where there's opportunities to evolve in ways that will positively impact our families and our communities.
Yes, thank you. And I certainly enjoyed our conversation. Beautiful drive coming out to North Adams Route 2 this time of year. It's fantastic. So I think, one of the biggest challenges of the court, especially from the judge's perspective, is that, the impact that we can have on the lives of the litigants, and we do have a lot of impact, is limited in some ways, right? The judges can make orders regarding custody, child support, divide property. But a lot of litigants, especially those who are pro se, especially those who are low income, they're going to face some additional challenges based on the decisions that are made. It could be housing insecurity. It could be even food insecurity because the child support only goes so far. If somebody who is an obligor all of a sudden is in arrears by a lot of money, now they have to find another job. They might not know how to do that. So I think with our conversation, what I hope to make clear and that I would share with this council is that the more resources that the court can make available to litigants, I think the better of an opportunity that the litigants have to succeed once they leave the courtroom. And hopefully, whether it's implementing restorative justice principles or having a resource in the court that will address like the concerns of domestic violence and the effects on not just the survivor, but the effect on the alleged abuser and their relationship with the children. And I think that those resources can hopefully lead to maybe less contempt, maybe less modifications if folks are able to assist the things that they need to improve their lives once they get the decisions from the court and deal with the certain issues. And so I think, again, the more resources we're able to provide to litigants, hopefully it would lead to a reduction of cases, but also more importantly, just put them in a better situation to succeed going forward.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. So in our hearing earlier this morning, I alluded to some research that I found fascinating. I don't think I actually cited what the research was, so I will share it now. But I'm curious if you're aware of this research. It's there's a professor at Georgetown, a lawyer, George Washington University Law School. Her name is Joan Meyer. Have you heard of her? Are you familiar with her at all?
Not familiar.
Okay, well, she's done a series of empirical quantitative studies, literally thousands and thousands of cases synthesized and analyzed statistically in family court. And the most recent paper, and there's a bunch going back, but so it's like any research, it sort of like builds on itself. So there's a repetition and so the earlier papers go back decades, but then the most recent is just a couple years old. And that one, the research paper is titled "Denial of Family Violence in Court: An Empirical Analysis and Path Forward for Family Law." And the statistics are stunning in this and also the prior modeling that this was built on that shows a gender bias in family court where because it tends to be mothers who bring forward allegations of abuse, either domestic partner abuse or child abuse or physical abuse or child sexual abuse. And each of those has a different outcome that gets increasingly worse in terms of the impact on loss of custody for mothers. So mothers allege they tend to lose custody. That's the trend in family court. And what's fascinating to me is, so I have a psychology background. Social psychology is sort of my educational bent. And it's really rooted in a human psychology to mentally deny and back away from horror. So war, trauma, violence, we have a tendency to like see but not see. And it shows up in family court in these outcomes that literally the statistics bear out. So I offer all that. to lead to a question of, you know, we did talk about bias. We didn't really talk too much about gender bias. There's so many different forms of bias that show up in our courts. But I'm curious about how much thought you've given to the impact of gender bias in family court, how much work you do, what you plan to do as a judge in terms of staying current with data, with emerging understanding of cultural trends, and otherwise the shifting dynamics that impact our courts. I'll stop there because I could keep asking, layering questions onto this, but.
So I haven't read the study that you referenced. I'd be interested in looking at it. I think it's very important for anyone who's taking on this role to be cognizant of all biases, including gender bias, racial bias, bias against those who have different abilities, bias with regards to sexual orientation. And I think it's important for judges to sort of do the homework, do the self-reflection. I know we talked a little bit about, you know, me personally in terms of routinely doing that self-reflection when thinking about decisions that have to be made. But there's also training that you know, can be utilized in access, and studying, reading the articles, because at the end of the day, as I said in my opening statement, the court has to be welcoming for everyone coming in there seeking justice. And so, and we cannot be blind to the fact that these biases do occur. From the judge's perspective, from my perspective, the number one place to start to make sure that doesn't happen is with the judge, and so that we're making fair decisions, and it's clearly based on the facts of the case, law, how it's going to be applied, and if there's any sense, at least for me personally, that bias has played a role, I want to know why that is, and I want to change it for the next time.
No, I appreciate that. I guess I'll just end with for you to think about how you'll approach it from the bench. But the result of this kind of data being understood, but also I think anecdotally it was felt even before the empirical data came to support it, is there's a tendency for counsel to warn women in situations like this, or not even to gender, but people in situations like this, which tends to be the mother, not to bring up the abuse because they'll risk losing custody. And so there's a fear coming into probate and family to not share, to not be open on these things, which impacts the safety of children in those situations. But that's what they're trying to shield from is losing their custody to be able to protect their kids. So what if, I won't even ask you what you're going to do, but I'm just going to leave it with, think about that. I be aware of it, and I do think it requires a level of overt effort to mitigate those fears and encourage people to feel like it is a safe space, that they're able to be open and honest with the fullness of whatever their situation is, and not worrying that they're going to lose their custody.
And I take your comments very seriously, and I, for one, believe that the judges cannot do their jobs unless they have the full facts and information from both parties. And again, both parties should feel comfortable enough to tell their stories. That's what we're there for, to hear their stories. So whatever I can do to make sure that people feel that they can do that with me, I want to do it. Obviously, it's hard to control what attorneys are advising their clients, but I would hope that as the attorneys get to know me as a judge, they would understand that those are facts, that's information that I would want to hear, so that I can best assess, what's in the best interest of the children in terms of the parenting relationships that, I think everyone wants to continue, but to make sure it's done in a safe way, an appropriate way. And so I will certainly be mindful of your words.
No, I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Sib.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Jean-Pierre, on your nomination. I'm always happy to see parents who migrate into this country, wherever they're from, to see the fruit of their labor. We also have something in common as a Haitian American myself. I'm always pleased to see, the next generation moving forward and making spaces where they can lead and make an impact in their community. And I'll make it short. I have one question. Do you believe the current family court system adequately responds to mental health needs to families, and why or why not?
That is an excellent question. I think the court, I think pretty much all industries we can do better with addressing the mental health sort of needs and the capacities of those who are struggling. It's important from a judge's perspective to look at and to understand why someone might be able to parent their child, be able to provide the care and attention. It's not because they don't love their child, but there's sort of barrier. From a judge's perspective, we could take that information and make certain decisions. But again, so going back to the conversation of resources, the decisions, and then everyone here. So we're years with folks who are low income, who don't have resources readily available at home. I would spend a lot of time, colleagues spend a lot of time helping them find therapists, helping them understand what insurance plays into trying to get the services they need so they can better parents. And so if there's a way for the court to be able to play a role in people into the way, that would be great. At least in some of the courts that I practice, I think that's been a little bit. But again, me personally, as of where I worked and the attention that we pay to some of the holistic ways of learning and problem solving, those are things that you were able to. But for self-represented, not where to go and how to access those resources. So I think the court can do a little bit better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ferreira.
Thank you. Let me start by saying the post counsel here is a big fan of yours, as well as Counselor Kennedy grabbed me early on, said his daughter works with you, and got to speak with them, and they have all great things to say. Bethany Brown called me about you, saying you're outstanding and you're gonna make a great judge. I've heard from people from Worcester. Counselor DiPaolo has reached out to me as well. So you got my vote next week for sure. I'm sure you're gonna be fair, and I have to say it every time we have a probate person. I went through a horrible experience 25 years ago, yelling that joint physical custody never works, and it worked out perfectly well. And I have 3 great daughters for it. So thank you for applying, and you have my vote next week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will wrap this up as quickly as I can, just because of time and has nothing to do with your merit, which I think is exceptional. Counselor Kennedy, Counselor DiPaolo did speak with me, as well as Judge Bethany Brown, spoke very highly of you. You have wonderful letters of recommendation. We got about 20 seconds. Can you duplicate that great answer you gave me about you when we had our conversation one-on-one about mental health being a factor when considering deciding matters of custody and parenting time?
Well, I will try to duplicate it.
20 seconds.
I said, but I think the point that I was trying to make that, again, we have to recognize with litigants that there are issues of mental health, there are issues with substance abuse. And for a judge, it's important to not just hear those being issues and assume that the person can't parent. We need to know the nexus. We need to know why these things are creating a barrier, if they are creating a barrier, because there are circumstances where folks are able to live with mental health and even manage the substance abuse or alcohol abuse, and somehow they're still able to parent. And so we just have to, as judges, as a court, just recognize that nexus and look at that before making decisions about parenting time and custody and so on and so forth.
Thank you. That's why I wanted you to say that. That's why I'm happy to be voting for you, and you're all set. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you. We're gonna use a proverb today. Whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. So let us pursue righteousness and love.
Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We've had a busy morning already.
Yes.
Hold. Let me go ahead and get started. If I could recognize Counselor Civil for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Seconded by Counselor Ziegler. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Counselor Dolan for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public
So moved.
and justices of the peace. Motion's been made, seconded by Counselor Lyonel. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. I know we had 3 nominations announced last week. Tana Mae Coleman to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. Counselor Lyonel, it sounds like you've got a hearing October 1st at 10 a.m.
10 a.m., correct.
All right, 1 down. And then Mark Fabiano to the position of Associate Justice of District Court.
October 1st at 11.
Counselor Civil's got that October 1st at 11. That's gonna be a good day. All right. And then Rebecca Michaels to the position of Associate Justice in the District Court. Counselor Jacobs, is
Yes,
that the 8th at 1:30?
that's correct.
All right, everyone's got that. And I know we have 2 new nominations, Jamie Ann Bennett to the position of Associate Justice in the Juvenile Court. Counselor Civil, do you have a date for that yet?
But I'll have one soon.
So to be determined. And then Benjamin Mann, the position of Associate Justice in Juvenile Court. That's you, Counselor Jacobs.
I'll get back.
To be determined. Okay. We'll get those filled in. I don't have any other business. Counselor Ionella?
One thing, you know, we didn't have a meeting, last week, but it was a special day. One of the hardest working governor's counselors, it was her birthday. And I want to.
Happy birthday! The year around the sun. All right, I like it. That's wonderful, Counselor Ionella. Thanks for recognizing that. Any other birthdays or things that we need to be aware of? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been made by Counselor DePaulo, seconded by Counselor Jacobs. All those in favor, all those opposed? And adjourned.
I'm gonna bring up something.